Welcome to this video tutorial with Virtual Racing School for the Blancpain series on iRacing. This week takes us to Imola, where I'll be looking at a lap driven by Rens Broekman in the Ferrari 488 GT3, which he's driven in default afternoon weather to match the official series. I'll play the lap in full for you first, before then going into further analysis. Okay, so that was a 1 minute 42.755. Starting off then, as ever, from the list of available data packs on the website, we're going to choose the Ferrari GT3 Blancpain series, and we're going to choose week 4. This will open up the session details, where of course you can download the lap files to compare your driving in sim, the replay and the setup. I'm just going to click on Learn Track, which will load up the driving analyzer, and it should start to play the lap through. I'm just going to pause it, slow it to half speed and mute it. Now, if you're unfamiliar with these overlays, you've basically got a steering angle input trace during the length of each sector, same with speed, and brake and throttle inputs displayed in red and green respectively. So we'll play it through. Obviously keeping the car sort of in a nice easy path to the left. I guess this is an apex here. You want to make sure you have the car over to this side of the track for the shortest distance, as you then allow the car to drift back over to the right to prepare yourself for braking into turn 1. Now you do have this 200 marker, but that's going to be too early, so if we play this through and pause it just there, you'll see that this is where Rens starts to brake, and if you need a reference, you've got this access road coming in from the right hand side. Now in terms of car positioning, the circuit kinks slightly to the left, so you don't need to worry too much about being fully over to the right hand side just yet, because if you take a straight line under braking, you'll end up at the edge of the circuit anyway, which will position you nicely for turning in. So threshold braking, the car has ABS, but still you don't want to be abusing the ABS, so we can see here that Rens is braking at a peak of about 60% for best deceleration and minimal ABS, and he turns in quite late here, so really this is a corner where you don't want to turn in too early, because you'll risk running too wide through the exit and then compromising your entry into the next 2 sections of the sequence. So we'll just play it through. Now he's turning in, and he's come off the brakes but hasn't coasted, so he's still trail braking a little bit just to help the front end stay loaded up, and he's turned in nice and smoothly into the corner, picks up a nice apex there just on this anti-cut curb. You can just about get away with some of these. This is an example of one which you can get away with just catching, as Rens has done here. Now he's also picked up the throttle quite aggressively as he's apexing here, but then doesn't commit to full throttle for a little while longer. So he wants to keep the car from running too wide through here, so he wants to set up the car nicely into this right-hander. So he's just opened the corner up ever so slightly there, but still has taken a small lift, has feathered out of the throttle ever so slightly, but then again is back using the curb to its fullest extent again before making contact with the anti-cut curb there. And then from this point outward, the corner, the rest of the corner, the left-hander following, should be completely flat out, as we can see here from Rens. So don't allow the car to run too wide here, otherwise you'll probably struggle to make it through the final left flat out. And this is another anti-cut curb that you can really attack here. It gives you a nice clean run down towards the following faster chicane that is Variante Villeneuve. So play it through. Again, you've got another reference here that you can potentially use. You've got this 50 marker on the right hand side. We've just passed the 100 marker as well, so roughly in between those two marker points should be a good reference. Now this has got a much faster entry compared to turn 1. In fact, according to the track map, the first chicane is turn 2. But regardless, you want to brake quite gently into this second chicane. It's got a much faster entry, so you can see that Rens is peaking at about 40% and turns in fairly early, so much earlier than for turn 2. You can see here in the steering trays how gently and how early he's turning in, because he wants to keep the car nice and tight and carry good momentum in. You can see how he's slowing the car down really gently. So again, up onto the curb again, using that anti-cut curb, slight bit of coasting as he's on the curb itself to avoid unsettling the car too much, and then as he's off the curb he takes the opportunity to brake again a little bit harder and starts turning in for the second half, where again, using a decent amount of curb, the Ferrari tends to be fairly forgiving on the curb, so you want to take good advantage of that. And picks up the throttle as he apexes, but again some hesitation there before he finally commits to full throttle. And this curb on the exit is really wide and open, so you can just let the car run out onto there fully and open the car up for the least amount of scrubbing of speed. Bring the car back over to the right hand side into the Tosa hairpin. Again, you've got another access road which we can see that's just finished here, but Rens starts braking pretty much on the access road itself. Now there are a few different lines that you can use into this hairpin. I personally prefer a tighter line, which sacrifices my exit slightly, but I find it gains me a little bit more on entry. Rens on the other hand prefers a wider entry, and as a result gets a better exit. So you can see here he's turning in quite late, still hasn't really committed. Now he's finally turning in, and again not coasting, just trail braking to keep the car optimally loaded up at the front. Gets the car in nice and tight all the way down to second gear, gets the car slowed down nicely at the apex before then picking up the throttle quite aggressively and opening the car up, opening the steering up. There's a little bit of oversteer there, which is to be expected if you are just slightly too eager on the throttle, as was the case for Rens here. So open the car up. You can use this curb if necessary, but try and avoid going onto the AstroTurf because it's got less grip. Up the hill then towards Piratella. Obviously you want to gradually bring the car over to the right hand side and look out for your braking reference, which is going to be this 50-meter marker here, or just before in the case of Rens. You can't afford to brake too late in here, and also you can't afford to turn in too early. So we see that Rens bleeds off the brake nicely and carefully as he turns in. Third gear through here, and picking up the throttle really quite aggressively this time at the apex. The circuit drops away down the hill, so just be careful. Again, you've got a wide curb, but it does have AstroTurf through the exit, which is very slippery. But if you keep the car nice and straight, you can still maintain good speed. Rens is able to keep it nice and tight through there, and also keep the car over to the left hand side, which best prepares him for Acque Minerali, which is down the hill. Arguably the most difficult sequence on the whole circuit. Now the best way to approach this is to brake quite early for the first half, and we can see here that Rens brakes just at or just before the 50 marker once again, but very gently on his application, so only reaching about 25% brake pressure there. In terms of fairly early, comes off the brake as he rides this curb at the apex and maintains good speed throughout. So we can see here you can get on that curb nicely, just avoid using it too much because you will get penalised, and then let the car run out, so open the car up and then get on the brakes harder for the second half, and really make sure that you're using all of the track. So you want to straighten the car here, get hard on the brakes as Rens is doing, and then as this curve on the left ends, you want to be turning in with a much slower apex this time. Now it's important that you hold the brakes long enough to slow the car down here to get a neat and tidy, now that's absolutely key, exit. So because Rens has slowed his apex speed right down, he's able to once again get quite aggressively on the throttle, especially initially, as we can see. And he's neat and tidy, uses all of the curb through the exit. Once again, you've got AstroTurf, so don't get run too wide, and also you can get an off-track penalty if you do run too wide as well. Keep the car straight as you come up the hill for least amount of wheel spin. If you try and keep the car to the left, you can unsettle the rear end as well. And then prepare yourself into braking for the Variante Alta chicane, where you can really attack the curbs here. So you can see the Rens again braking just before the 50 marker, but much harder, probably the hardest braking zone on the circuit, apart from maybe Rivazza, which is just after this. Now you can actually turn in fairly early into this one, because you really want to attack the curbs. Now I'm just going to show you just how much curb Rens is using here. He's fully on this sort of higher sausage curb section, so he's got the entire car within the white lines. Now you can get away with this in iRacing, so take advantage of that, and the more you cut it, the better you set yourself up for the second half of the chicane. Now this requires you to be a little bit more lenient with the curbs. So you see here he's a lot more conservative with his curb usage. Does actually just breathe on the brakes just to bring the speed down enough. He's obviously feeling it out, and then back on the throttle for the exit. Now you can see here that he doesn't commit to full throttle until he's got the car nice and straight. And again, you can use a lot of curb through the exit, but just be aware that the AstroTurf is very slippery. Now this is about as wide as you can possibly be before being penalised, so use this as your reference for the outer limit, as it were. And then keep the car nice and straight. Just going to speed it up down the hill, hug the inside white line all the way until you see this curb appear, and then turn in. You don't want to turn in too early, and then that will set you up nicely for the braking zone down the hill, where I'm just going to slow it down to half speed again. Now Rens was braking just at the 100 meter marker there, or just before. In fact, again, one of the heaviest braking zones on the circuit, peaking at about 60 or 70%. Any more than that and you're just abusing the ABS. And then into here, aiming for this curb on the inside, so avoiding turning in too late. You can attack this curb quite aggressively, as with most of the curbs on this circuit with this car. And then be patient with the throttle. So you see again a typical trend of picking up the throttle quite aggressively, but not overcommitting to full throttle straight away, and then allowing the car to run out using all of the exit curb. Now this isn't actually AstroTurf, this is concrete, so there's plenty of grip out here, even though we're again all four wheels over the white line. just be aware that you don't want to leave your braking too late for the last corner, which is absolutely critical for setting up for a good exit. So by far the longest section of full throttle on the whole circuit follows this corner, so you really want to nail the exit. So you don't want to brake too late. You see here that Rens is nice and gentle on the brakes, just keeping it really clean, really tidy and neat. Rides the curb on the inside, picks up the throttle just as he apexes, and again, even more so than most corners, in fact, Rens is super patient on the throttle here, doesn't overcommit to full throttle too early because he doesn't want to risk getting out of shape for the exit. And then I'll just speed it up again as we finish the lap. Just obviously follow the inside pit wall here to travel the shortest distance to complete the lap across the line. You can find all setups, replays and telemetry for your own use and analysis on virtualracingschool.com, where you can also book coaching including group classes with world champions from the likes of Koen the Simsport. Good luck for this week and feel free to post any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.